خزيانة مخبرة مشوخن طاوة هاي لبرس خزوت أطرايب تيول وانوان شاروكينا هسو مقلون قاد توخن أها خرزة إيجت إيتون خزيانة مخبر خرزن إديو إلى خرزة دي لنايب نتنو تشوشي شوي خمسة ديشقل شوبا جو كناركت وجو خرزن إديو بت مقروالة أها خرزة شاروكين بت جيفارجس بس بوشن أمان قد خدها ساعة برس خزوت أطرايب تيول خزيانة مخبة هدية بشاقنا خون من شاروكين بت جيفارجس.
Hello, this is Assyrians around the world, and I am Sharokina Bet-Gevargiz, reporting here from the Assyrian American National Convention, the 75th, at Hartford, Connecticut. And first I'd like to introduce myself and go into this body of work that is being exhibited here at the art exhibition. I was born in Tehran, Iran, and around 1984 we came to the United States, and it was around 2004 where I had made a decision to study art. And at that time I got a Master's in Fine Arts in 2006 in Boston University's College of Fine Arts, studying graphic design. And currently I'm teaching as a professor at Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this body of work, which was the culmination of my Master's in Fine Arts. It's titled Form Follows Function, a Design of an Assyrian Identity. And I had the privilege of studying with Professor Alston Purvis, who initially didn't know much about my work, but once he saw the typography, that is the letter forms and the writings of Assyrian language, he was very much interested that I study with him under the master's program there at Boston University. And he also specializes in history of graphic design, and he's the premier person in terms of his studies and research, and has published the classic textbook that students from AIGA, that is American Institute of Graphic Artists, generally speaking, any graphic designer studies history of graphic design using Meg's History of Graphic Design, written by Meg's and Alston Purvis. So I had that opportunity, and he was very passionate about the forms of Alabit. What I'd like to point out is how I started. In fact, the first piece that I did was right here, titled Our Smallest Ally, Sliva Qatuch Usepakati. I had the opportunity through a lot of research to find a great source, Henry Layard's book about monuments of Nineveh. The book is about $14,000. There's only 13 in print. 13 libraries, I believe, or so, or 27 in the United States that have that. In fact, George's Press has reprinted it for $700. But before that occurred, I was able to find a source online and download it in a PDF format. However, the quality of material, the visuals were horrible. I was able to use Adobe Illustrator, which is very readily available to many people, to create outlines that can be well rendered. So I started with that image, thinking about our warriors as Assyrians, and asking the question of what happened to us. Well, there were the levies, and since I had that source image from previous work that I had done with at Boston Public Library, Immigration and Adjustment, Assyrian Family Records, I was able to use that with permission of, because getting permissions is very important, of family member that had that image. Then I thought about what's happening now. Our homeland is being tortured by a war. So I thought about that, and I was looking and researching, and I saw blogs posted by American soldiers on a tank. This is an American soldier who has posted a picture of himself or herself. You can't quite tell what her gender is. Holding a machine gun on rooftop of a tank, and that is actually the rest of the landscape behind him or her. And I have the title Our Smallest Ally upside down because that's how we were referred to by the West. And this piece is especially meaningful in terms of composition and message, because this is something we still deal with as a community. Slivakatuch usepakati is what we heard Agapotros tell Mar Binyamin before his killing occurred. And the statement here is actually an excerpt from a book written about Agapotros. So you can see documentary material is being used visually to tell history, which is what I really believe. I think that we are a visual people. We can talk all we want. We can read all we want. But when we have a visual thing that we see every day, and it is part of our history, we as Assyrians were very important in visual history with how we created Bet Nahrain, Assyria. What is left behind is what speaks for itself. I'll move on to other pieces. This piece here, Religious Nationalism, is the English title. Assyrian title is Malacha Mard Gulpane. Was constructed through initially the village Gulpashan and the church Margi Verges. Then I started layering things and thinking about bringing in again ancient patterns, working with pattern and type and telling documentary stories. So what's happening here is I'm using graphic design as a medium to visually expose the current political status of Assyrians in Middle East. Overall, that is what I'm doing. Aesthetically, I am using patterns, images, and typography of Assyrians. And the examination occurs through only a few sources. Henry Layard's images that his illustrators did, and moving on in that sense, weaving and telling stories. Okay, moving on to our next piece here, Bet Nahrain, Assyrian homeland. Initially, we began. I began my investigation by playing with words, with letters. I played with Alap, I played with Zain, I played with He, I played with Dalath, and that's all I had, that form here. And that's all I was going to show at my exhibition. I didn't have the privilege to stand there and just show a sort of abstract image. I felt that it was important for me as an indigenous artist, as an Assyrian artist, whose people are struggling, to explain something. Well, what was I going to explain? I kept looking at the image. What did I play? What did I do? I like it. I'm not going to change it. Well, what do I see here? I see a man on a horse. I see an animal. I see a foundation with something over it. Well, what does that remind me of? What are our icons? What are our icons as Assyrians? Lamasu, Torat Atur. That's our icon. Well, how can I weave these two together? How can I say who we are? How can I show my homeland? Can I do that? Well, there's the map. I showed currently Iraq right in the middle, but we have Assyrians elsewhere in that area. We can't go with the map the way it is. We can go with the map the way we had it, but I gotta show it the way it is. So then I exposed some very simple, to-the-point facts about our people in Iran, Turkey, Syria, and northern Iraq. Now, many say Arbil is not here, Mosul is not here, Duhok is not here, but I'm playing with visual aesthetics. Here we have a flower giving more flowers and moving that way. That's one layer, one plane. Underneath it, you see another layer. That's the actual map as is today. What is the map saying? The source is from actually aina.org and their website. They did an investigation about where ancient Assyrian provincial capitals are as opposed to where Assyrian Christian monasteries are. You see these ancient Assyrian provincial capitals with flowers, and you see the Assyrian Christian monasteries with crosses. And we prove here that our current day monasteries are very much close to where our ancient capitals were. So as I had that there, I placed the Lamasu right here, who's actually, it was my father's inspiration a little bit. He was watching me work on the poster, and Babi, my father, said, why don't you definitely use him and place him there? And I didn't know where to put things, but people get involved and give opinions, but the artist, the designer, is the final person who makes the decision. Now, why would I call this Bet Nahrain, Assyrian homeland? Because naturally it's showing the map, but also, why do we see the word Chaldean and Syriac there? Well, perhaps it's speaking to the current struggle about what is our identity among our own people. And the first thing you see is Assyrian, and I wanted to make sure that that's the first thing we see. All right, so we'll move on now to another word play. And this word play in this piece began with simply this piece here. Similar to here, I just started playing with atwate, our letter forms. Tau, dalas, pe, zen, alaphi. You can see that in there. Do you see? And then, of course, a, and we also see zain. Zain is coming this way, playing and dancing and making a pattern. Initially, I started here and I said, I've got to make a piece about Assyrian genocide. But how do I do it so it's interesting for people to look at? Can you talk about the genocide using dark colors? Sure. Can you talk about the genocide using bright, playful colors? Sure. Which one would most likely people want to look at? I think the bright, playful colors. So I had a book, Flickering Light of Asia. It's an important book in our history, and I scanned an image of little children in it. Once I scanned it, I saw Duna Bizkara. They're knitting, they're making patterns, and I'm talking about genocide, and there's patterns in genocide. And hence the title gave birth here. What is the title? Patterns of Genocide. And in Assyrian, Werded Semeli. More wordplay here and patterns, or letters form, working with those. Source, again, Peter Bedbasu's work from aina.org, and some of this information also came from research done with the project Immigration and Adjustment, Assyrian Family Records. Individual dates are identified all the way to present, which at that time was 2004. The image in the background is also from the book Flickering Light of Asia, showing Assyrian community here, and what the image identifies is as militiamen, Muslim militiamen at the time. Khalti Anna Badal, The Abduction of Assyrian Women. This is the title of this piece. I still come to tears thinking about it. Many times my mother started telling the story of her aunt, Khalti Anna, she said. Aunt Anna, that was abducted. She told the story lightly, laughing, being jovial, and I was shocked. I was little. She told the story again. Now I was an older child, a young woman, perhaps 18. She told it in front of her daughter, my mother's niece. I was overwhelmed. Years passed. Now I'm doing my master's in fine arts, and I want to do a piece about Assyrian women. Well, I sat down with my mom. She wrote the entire story down. We cried. We held each other. And then the poster came to birth, gave birth to itself. Well, how? There was also a letter. There was no image of Khalti Anna Badal. This letter in the background is a 1935 poem written by an Assyrian woman, my grandmother, from Bakuba, when she had fled Urmi in an exile, and writes the letter to her sister, Anna, and tells her that she still loves Urmi, even though her mother and father were massacred there. How did the image come to form visually, and how did it all occur? This was one of the toughest posters I've worked on. It's been revised several times. If you see the initial image, you'll be shocked how I came to this conclusion. Thanks to the power of graphic design, power of montage and photo montage, I'm using my mother's wedding photo. The face belongs to my mother's mother, Dina. The outline here in dark maroon is an Assyrian goddess, Ninhursag. She was the goddess of waters and trees and landscapes. It made me think of Urmi. The form that the goddess happens to sit is the exact form that my mother is sitting at her wedding day. It all worked out. And I drew this tablet-looking piece from the same form of that illustration from a book and placed in the background parts of the letter, which is a poem in stanza. There is 7 stanzas in the poem. And in the background, in a dark night, I visualized the colors. It was a moonlit night. 2 Kurdish men abducted her in 1912. She was living in a Christian village of Tekerdeshai in the northwest Urmi region of Iran. And the story goes that she gave birth. And the story goes that she hid in a small farmhouse with her family. And they had to keep a fire to stay warm. They couldn't leave the village because she had just given birth. And what happened is that they killed her father and her husband. They did not kill the child as it was not a boy. And they abducted my great-great-aunt, Anna Badal of Tekerdeshai. Her mother and her newborn daughter were left behind. She was only 18. Kurds and Muslims abducted many Assyrian women. It was a snow-covered moonlit night. My great-grandmother begged the men, "Let go of my daughter. She just gave birth. She is of no use to you. She's hemorrhaging." But they didn't listen and sped away on horseback. She followed them into the daylight hours from the trail of blood left behind. The newborn died 3 months later. And finally, it still happens today in Iraq. This piece is very important. It's caused a lot of feminist studies women want to showcase this, and I'm very honored to have the power to speak up on behalf of our women's stories, our great-grandmother's stories. And this piece really shocks people because they think that Kurds are the only ones who are suffering. And it's also been I've been confronted by Kurdish people saying this can attack Kurdish people. But all I say is it's telling a story. And that's what it is. That's the beauty of art. It tells a story. Ila, this is Mudila Umta, Assyrian territory in northern Iraq. The pattern that overwhelms this entire poster initially came from, again, sketches of Henry Layard's from a palace tiles, that is literally the carpet or the floor design in an Assyrian palace. If you look closely at the image that we have inserted here, you will see this form embodies the Assyrian cross. It additionally embodies the form, the basic form of one of the most remarkable flags designed in the world, the Assyrian flag. It reflects the solar disk, and I felt that was an important drop back for this Mudila Umta. Mudila Umta reflects the religion of our people and the nationality of our people. Mudila Umta has been written in a Stranguli typeface and also in the Western typeface. In orange we see that, and in Estrangoli we see the dark blue. Behind it we have a map. The map is a 1960 sketched by hand by David Shumun. he was a deacon. This is northern Iraq. These are the rivers that we see right here. In the placement of where Turkey is, I have placed Assyrians from Turkey, actual image, documentary photo, again from the project from Boston Public Library, Immigration and Adjustment, Assyrian Family Records. Where are they sitting? They are sitting in a ziggurat. They are sitting in the shadow of a ziggurat bigger than that. Because when our people walked in the land, they looked up and they didn't see high rises. They saw even more monumental rises. They saw the ziggurats. And what is our youth doing today? This is a dedication for a very important group called CARD, Council for Assyrian Research and Development. And their entire statement about petition for Assyrian territory in Iraq has been placed in the shadow of Sumerian figurines. We will look at the second insert at that later. This piece really challenges people to think about Assyrians in northern Iraq. This was a real fun piece, Aramaic puzzle. It's actually a game, it's a puzzle. This piece began with a focus on our letter forms, again, alabit. If you notice, everything is scrambled. And we have croppings, that is a word that we've used in photography, when you crop something to show only some parts of it. Like a curtain, you cover certain edges. I ask people, can you find where alap is? I ask people, can you find where beat is? How about nun khareta? How about How about dalath? Some people find right away. Some people can't find it. Well, it's a test. It's a test on how much we have assimilated as a people. Because if you crop a logo for Apple computers, if you crop a logo for Nike, if you crop a logo for another company, you may be able to still recognize what it is. Well, let's crop our letter forms and see if we can still recognize them. So in this sense, everything is in gray tones and black. There's 3 different tones used in the background: pure black, approximately 30% black, and then approximately 60% black. And there's a relationship between where mim khareta ends and where tau begins, where tau ends and where chet begins, where chet ends and where pe begins, and so forth. Because there's a relationship between us as people, as Assyrian people, and how much we've assimilated. There's a relationship between how we decide to relate to someone who is completely involved in their community in the Middle East, someone who's a corporate lawyer working downtown New York, and once in a while he'll come to a convention. And that's showing that in me, in my thinking, as I have mixed up the letters. They're dark because our people, our story is sad. We have been thrown to various corners of the world. We have been exiled. We are forgetting our own language. In fact, the scans here are from my notebook when I was 13 in Iran, learning my mother's language. This essay I wrote, and the teacher is asking me, in fact, her name was Rabbi Sharokina, if one day you lose your language, what will happen? And I've written an essay that I can barely read now, so now older, I'm not able to read it fully as easily as I did at the age of 13. So that's another sad story, that my language skills are deteriorating. And I got a 19 out of 20, so that's a good score. I guess I wrote a really good essay. Again, the conjugation of the verb, beshtayevin, beshtayevan, beshtayevat, beshtayevit, and so forth, to the third person, plural, it goes on. Why is there color in it all of a sudden? Because primary colors are our youth, our young people, we. It's in our hands. How we go forward in our way. The arrow is pointing that way because alabit mai basharoila. It starts from right to left. We read right to left. So despite the somber status of our people, it's in the hands of our youth. It's in the hands of me, you and I together. We can move forward. So that's the piece Aramaic puzzle. Here we have a piece titled The Shadow of Your Simile. There is a shadow here. The word is simile. I am telling you to think about it, the shadow of your simile. It's not too hard to listen to the word Iraq. We've seen it everywhere. Everyone in America now knows. If you don't, there's a problem. But what is the shadow? What is your shadow? And how is the shadow created? What type of a sun is coming from way out west? Is it a regular sun? Is it a symbol of a very dangerous thing? And what kind of a shadow is it creating? The shadow of your simile. I'm very honored to have this piece at the faculty show coming soon at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. It will be framed and its corners and edges are still raw, meaning that there's crop marks, and it's hot off the press. Print on canvas.
أهم شخته إلى من يمي بشتلش تفتح بشيتة البوجامو تلاي خمسة من دي شيتة قط أنا بدنيا تيتن خشيخته بدلي قارة وطانا أرمي شم خلية للشاماجي وبومي بميدان خطيل بابي ويمي مدربت خاقران بيخ وطن سوجل هابخ باسيمة كرمانغ ظريف اتلغي قارة او دخلخ تعريف بتخلون معدانخ لا بيشي زيف شاري البلاخة بنونخ طنانة ملش خارجي بكل يطانة مطاهخ سبزخ قابولي بطانة أهي بخاقطة من دا مشوخته هذه الصورة شاروكينا سلمنالا جو تخمنتو بدن حقيقة قد أنا هقيتين وقاتو من خيوتة يمي وخلتي قشيتت الفوتشومو أرباسر قرداي رابوينا الماتت أردشاي خلتي يدانا إيوة تمانصارشن جاسر جورتوا وإتفال خيال السورة چت إيوة طلا يماني من براتو طلا يمان وهو سلطوا أميمو أباهو برخاقنا جو كرمي جو أرمي جو كل كرمان اتنخابيت تقيطة قد قجميت حاصيلة أنا بيشلون تاما سبب هوا قايروا وخلتي وصلتوا شوريلون قرتوا وخج نورا شرون قد شخنيوا الدون نورا قرداي رابوينا مغزاينا قد لخا اتنخياني وبيتاينا وصابوني من جورت خلتي بقطالنا وإبراتزي لنا لعبولو جاشوقنا سبب براتلا لنا إن برونا ويا بلبلي بالا خلتي شابرتوا خلتي لعبولونا أغيخسر نانونتي مسجنتا رابا نارات وعيلا رابا بخيلة هي رابا بخيلة وتريرا شاب باينا لعبولونا خدريا أورخانانونتي برشخلا بارا باري تلجا زبايل الريا خلتي هرمار لا دور باراي سمطيل دي براتا سرطة خلتي نانونتي بدانا أهوالت بديار لا تري هم جورو قطيلة هم ختنو وبخير يلا سورة خنا أيخا حقيقة رابا يارختلا أي كتبتون إيتا بسلمانيات شاروكينا أتخابد لغت لتفعلا ششلت خلتي جس متيلة ششلت يمي بديد موتوا وأيام شخته دم مريزالة تاما وجلوشتت دي آية أو مدبورة خديلة مريزالة أنا مديانة يتعني حقيقة خيوتي ديمي وخالتي وأنا بتان خجتابة سورة بداتت بتباش الطبيعة أبيتم باسيمة أنا يما فلورنس بيت جورج يمت شاروكينا باسيمة.
Welcome to Assyrians Around the World. We are here with a special author, Regina Tower, and at the 75th Assyrian American National Convention here in Hartford, Connecticut. So let's ask you a few questions. Tell me about how you got into being a writer.
My name is Regina Tower, and I was born in north of Iraq. And as a young person in school, I wasn't into literature. I only liked math and science. Later on, when I finished schooling, I started working. I went into reading the history of Assyrians and started thinking of putting things into focus about my nation. And then I liked expressing my feelings into verses. I'm not a poet because I never studied literature, but I love to express myself into a way that is more poetic and more appealing to the reader. So I wrote my book, Expression of Feelings, and it contains lots of ideas that how I felt. And I'm a very religious person, even as a child. And I have my poetry, or if I can call them poetry, into two sections, religious and secular.
Excellent. So this book was published in what year?
This year.
Fantastic.
2008. Prior to that, I have published a book called The Noble Gypsy. The theater of that book is supposed to be in Persia.
Really? Tell me more about that.
All the names are Persian names that I asked from friends of mine. They gave me the names of males and females, which I used. This girl, with the help of her mother, she disappeared. And it was said that she was killed by wild animals. And that was the end of the story there. But then the story goes on. And it happens that the lady was carrying a baby of a prince.
But you're not going to tell us everything, so people would want to read it.
Yeah. So I should stop here so that you will have to read the book to enjoy it.
Excellent. Can you tell us about those titles again?
The first one is The Noble Gypsy. The second one is Expression of Feelings.
Fantastic. And I hear that you worked on an amazing translation. Tell us more about that.
Well, this book was deciphered from cuneiform by two Iraqi Arab doctors. And we translated it into English language. I did it with the help of Dr. Samir Jonah. And we are waiting for Dr. Don George to write something about the book before we print it.
So this is going to be another one for you yet?
Yes, and hopefully it's going to be used in one of the colleges in Los Angeles, Fashion College. And they will know something about the Assyrians.
Of course. Well, let's now ask you a few more questions about where did this all come from? I understand faith is very important to you and that you've now moved into a whole new area, which is literature and your feelings.
Yeah, I'm a very religious person. To me, God, the Father, and Jesus the Son, and the Holy Ghost are number one in my life, in my heart, in my soul. Then come my family, then my people. And I'm proud to be Assyrian, and I love being it. One.
And now you are even more passionate than ever about your feelings and literature, and that's become a new theater for you to express yourself.
Exactly, that's very true. Now I love poetry. I love reading. I have read a lot of books of different kinds, but history and literature are my passion.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to have had the opportunity to interview you, and thank you again, Assyrians around the world. This was a short segment. Hope you enjoyed it.
The divine baby. 2,000 years ago, in the sky a star did glow. On earth, in a manger, so lowly and cold, was born the King of the world. Divine baby, the King of the universe, among animals was born. The heavenly host at his birth loudly sounded their trumpet and their horn, yet to the nobles of Bethlehem and Jerusalem he was not known. Memories. I sit by the window and think alone, motionless like a rune of years forlorn, gazing into space early at dawn, waiting for the new day to be born, and wondering about those past and forever gone. Also days coming up with things unknown. Those past still stand fresh in my memory, with minutes like honeyed sweets, with emotions and feelings that mingled in harmony. Those are cherished in my heart with every beat. And dreaded times with shadows and fears, empty times, painful regrets, and sad defeats. Some ups, some downs, few smiles and few tears, unnoticed scratches and deep scars barely concealed. Bitter wounds of soul that cannot heal for years. They neither faded away nor disappeared, but all are there, deeply engraved in the chamber of memories. نظرة في التاريخ. شور كنتي عرين الأزدي، وأنت خير من ضمت قلاعها من نسوري. أيا مهد الحضارات يسطع نورها، شرقا وغربا وهديا عبر العصور. ويا عرش من دكوا عروش العالمين، بفرسان وأبطال بشتى الدهور. واعتليت الشمس زهوا بعلوها، وامتطيت خيلاء أصيل المهور. أين أطلالك اليوم؟ أين أمجادك؟ أين من كانوا بالأمس شعبا فخور؟ تكالبت الأيام تبغي الفناء، فهيهات هيهات أن يجني الغرور. تاريخك يروي الدهور ملاحما، نقشت بأكاليل الفخار فوق الصخور. يحكي المحبون أمجادا لأمتهم، وفي صمود الصخر سر آشور. تلقت بنون تآطر دنيا تليقي، مقطرة القطرة مظلم يريقي. خكمة قطيلة وخكمة شنيقي، خين بدوصة بشن دويقي. الرخم خمريا رابا صنيقي، كل هوين الله شويقي. باسم لبوات إيقي، جرجن جاون كربة جديقي.
Avalon Banquets 1905 East Higgins Road, Elk Grove Village, Illinois. قد هارت خدويات سوخن أخلولانة baptisms, birthday showers, holiday events وشركة. قريباً Avalon Banquets ينودون visit website www.avalonbanquets.com. شيودا cover chairs قد occasions هذا غزة اتلو هارت خلياته. Avalon Banquets يدوق هال ألبو ترمناشي واتلو parking قتلمو خمشية لبيلة. تيخنا شوي ما نجي شبتها من أسرة 8 برمجة بس قريباً قد جاكو شانا ينلاني توما 8 4 شوا 4 طلا 5 شوا 4 صفر. ينودون visit AvalonBanquets.com. Mid-America Furniture, 3110 West Peterson, Chicago. عدجتت لموديل بريشيت فرنتشر أخ أطاقت خالة دماغها وأرخم من أمريكا ويوروب وبقيمة مرضيانة و 0% finance وتشد تابق with Mid-America Furniture ماضي لشمية من بس خزود أطرايبتي والقتياوي لوخن خد ديسكاونت. عدجتت اختلا شوي ومانجي شبتة بس تيمو تبوقن قم Mid-America Furniture قد شل latest furniture style ين قريم من شوا طلع شوا اشتخا تريخا سيبر اشتا تيمو تبوقن بت Mid-America Furniture. خزيانة مخبتي تلقى مخبرتها قالا بالنسبة لقابات عدة 10 سنين قامت إلى President of the Assyrian American National Federation. Assyrian American National Federation ومتوى أمتنايا آتراي بدمقروي خرمشة بتشاقل شوبا أها شبتا October 4th جبتت متوى أمتنايا آترايا 3191 Nile Center Road دوشكوكي إلينوي. قد أويتن تاما قصاد شوا قخرمشة رابا سودانا بنسبة قابات President عدة 10 سنين. خزيانة مخبة خديتهم بضايا تشيتا Assyrians يودي join جو Assyrians Walk for Hope وأهاشيتا أهيرخا أكتوبر إلى National Breast Cancer Awareness Month وخديتهم بضايا تشيتا هلن طليا مقروعة أها خرزة دي لبشقالة شوبا أهاشيتا وأهيرخا بتشاقل شوبا Sunday October 5th جو Gallery Park at the Glen جو Glenview Illinois. Registration إلى إسري $5 قا adults و $15 قا children صات أسرة at the Glen, Glenview, Illinois, Gallery Park. registration خوشن قد www.walkforhope.org وبيو انشلوخن ازيتن ده website واديتن register نيشا رابا اننقايا إلى Assyrians Walk for Hope to cure breast cancer. خجاخيتا website إلى walkforhope.org.
Yeah.